Everybody, welcome back to Post Status Draft. This is another interview in our series of agency journeys. And I'm talking to my friend Mario, who lives over in Europe. I've got to meet him a couple times in person, but you probably have seen his work online. He's very active and vocal and does great work in the WordPress land, passionate contributor and WordPresser. So Mario, thanks for coming on and sharing your journey of DevriX and your personal journey related to that.
Hey, Cory, thanks for having me, and always, having a great time joining you and everyone else on Post Status.
Okay, so tell us how you got started with WordPress. Tell us a little bit about your work, not just your agency, but like your work and your start with WordPress itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been toying with computers ever since I was probably 9. I actually built, well, maybe since I was 6. I built my first website back in 1999. It was still a static website. I was a fan of Pokemon, so I built a Pokédex, which was kind of the main thing that kept me busy with HTML and CSS. Then fast forward, I spent a few years just trying to kind of freelance as a kid. Pretty much this was in my teen years or so, and kind of just moving towards this digital field of like software development and web development and everything else that was kind of back on the market. My trajectory and kind of my background and career and college and so forth were also related to software engineering. Like high school and college, like university, were kind of in that same realm of informatics. So it didn't come as surprise to me that WordPress is pretty aligned with kind of what I want to do. It was still a CMS or kind of a web application framework or anything along those lines. So unlike other people that I've been working with back in the day, most of them were either writers using WordPress just as kind of bloggers, or let's say designers who needed kind of a software infrastructure to start building websites on. And kind of the reason I got passionate about WordPress was I was actually coming from the other side of the fence. I was coming from the perspective of enterprise grade software developer, right? Back in the day, I was already spending several years building Java software and .NET. I was certified Sun, afterwards Oracle, Java software developer, and kind of most of what I was doing at my day job was actually building enterprise projects for telecoms, for banks, for kind of multinational stores like the Walmarts of the world, which was pretty hardcore, pretty complicated, but at the same time things were moving really, really, really slow, right? To build a feature, you need 4 months and a team of 40 people, usually in kind of 3 different offices, just kind of building specifications and R&D and stuff. And honestly, I was getting bored, right? It just didn't move fast enough. I'm more of a startup person. It's about velocity. It's about moving fast. And kind of WordPress was a software I stumbled upon that was pretty quick to get started with, and then start building on top of that. So, kind of to sum it up, it's probably moving from the enterprise world to how can we build rapid applications? How can we stop reinventing the wheel and going through several different phases of that? Like moved from Java to PHP, then from different frameworks like CodeIgniter and Cake PHP and other frameworks in different languages to WordPress as kind of a site builder, as an again application framework, and then building on top of that. This kind of went through different iterations, right? It was more like, hey, you have a touch point with WordPress once, like a couple months later, another one, a couple months later, another one. And then at some point, it just starts pulling you in, like due to the community, the flexibility, the promise of a better platform, and everything else. So yeah, that's probably more or less kind of how I got pulled in. In terms of a timeline, back in maybe 2006, I was working in a media group, and they were building their own blogging network, and I was also part of the research team of other alternatives like Blogger and WordPress, of course, and LiveJournal, and there were a few other platforms living out there. And WordPress has always been standing as the kind of the tool that was most promising. It had the famous 5-minute install and the massive flexibility compared to say Joomla and Drupal, other competitors on the market, the ability to turn any single design into a living, breathing website, winning lots of awards like CSS awards and so forth due to all of that flexibility. So just kind of the system that really had it all, right? And starting with that, spending some time as a blogger, then building a couple of websites for clients as a freelancer. Then working for myself and using different systems until eventually I decided to drop everything else I was doing and just spend 100% of my time and effort into WordPress itself.
Excellent. So thank you for that background. That's awesome. Going to enterprise software, and then I love the stories I hear all the time about being 6 years old, 10 years old, whatever it is, and
Yeah.
doing cool stuff. Um, okay, so that brought us to WordPress, and so today, where are you at DevriX? Tell us a little bit about DevriX, the agency, and your work there. And then after that, we're going to talk about your journey to get where you are today. But right now, I just want to talk about where are you at today with DevriX, and what are you doing with WordPress in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, as a disclaimer, I do run different initiatives right now, and DevriX is the main one, but I also kind of participate in other businesses. We do acquire media websites, we work on SaaS solutions and so forth. So it's kind of a broader suite in itself. But I started DevriX, I think, 13 years ago, and it was kind of the natural continuation of my first of my career as a software engineer, then full-time freelancing, then growing full-time freelancing into the type of business that actually makes sense as an agency business, right? So we started right at the beginning of the recession, by the way, which is another probably interesting fact, simply due to the time we are living in right now. And for anyone who happens to be just starting right now, I actually think that recessions are the best possible time to start a business, right? It's the crappiest possible moment. You get no support, no funding, no clients. Everyone else is like nobody's opening your door. Nobody has free cash and stuff. If you can survive that for the next like 6 to 8 to 10 years, it's only going to get easier. Like there's no harder moment than starting your recession. So like literally the best possible time to start right now if you just want to survive the next 10 years. So again, right now we're around, I don't know, 50 people or so. Our main focus is WordPress Retainers, which we completely turned to in 2014, 2015. We actually coined the term WordPress Retainers, and this is kind of our main mantra, our main way of living. This is what we believe in. We believe that we provide the highest possible quality as retainers, highest possible attention to detail, and everything else for our clients. I've spent a lot of time just you know, talking about retainers, even at WordCamps and other events. I'm more than happy to just, offload that model to everyone else in the market because I believe that this model in itself is the future and everyone else has to adopt retainers. So that's kind of just more or less a side note. So yeah, we're about 50 people right now. We have our portfolio of retainer clients. Some of them started back when we initially launched retainers, 2014, 2015, like 7, 8 years with us. Pretty happy we are growing with them. They're growing with us. So it's a pretty sustainable way for us to keep learning more and keep investing in growing existing businesses, not just providing development services, but helping them scale and accelerate and go through different business challenges.
So, okay, let's talk about the retainers. What kind of work and what kind of client are we talking about with this? So I get the idea of a retainer, being able to retain your services on an ongoing basis. I think there's a bunch of benefits obviously around that, but what kind of work are you doing with those retainers?
Well, and that's a great question. And our retainers vary due to the fact that different clients look for different things. And interestingly enough, even though development, like design development, is kind of the main thing that we do provide a broader range of services, and we have added or evolved some of them over time due to client needs. For instance, we do have a marketing department in house. We have writers. We have people helping out with SEO. We do have a design team. We were offering ad ops services for several years for publishers, scaling their ad stacks and so forth. Speaking of marketing, we used to be a HubSpot agency partner for a while, simply because we had that much demand for marketing solutions. And kind of when you take a look at the broader suite of this, we keep adding on different things, right? Either on the technical side, like let's say React, which we don't actively sell, but we still do, or DevOps, or kind of other activities in terms of monitoring, alerting, integration with third-party systems, building with ERPs or anything else on the market, or the pure business side of things, which is again marketing, building funnels, helping out with business models, even kind of price gauging or kind of other activities from the marketing segment. And then there's purely business, where in some cases we literally just get inside of a business and help out with the actual kind of product line, the production line. From, hey, like for example, your e-commerce, let's build out let's make sure you have the right dashboards. Let's set up the right KPIs. Let's build out your OKRs, right? Like just make sure we participate in your quarterly planning. Let's make sure we build out scorecards and then, try to evolve with them. Let's try to, do some data and analytics, data engineering, which we do for some of our clients, right? To make sure we identify needs, to identify new markets, new opportunities, new target audiences, or anything like that. So it's more of a consultancy than pure offloading a one-off or development, due to the fact that we keep working with our clients for years to come, and we spend enough time to understand their business models and just say, hey, let's try to be as helpful as possible in as many areas of work as possible. And this oftentimes it just explores different ways to be helpful for our clients.
Excellent. With a wide range of services, which is incredible to really come alongside business or an organization. You can help out in a ton of ways. So how does it work? A new client comes to you all, and you're talking through how does it work? They present, okay, they're coming to you for something, and then how does it work? You're talking about, okay, this is how we work, WordPress retainers. Can you share, you know, just that
Mhm.
how that works?
Yeah. To oversimplify that, our retainers come with a price tag, right? So, public one is 180 per hour, and of course, we have discounts depending on how many kind of monthly package and so forth. But at the end of the day, we say, hey, like based on your budget, we can offer you a bulk of hours, and then make sure, like, let's say you buy a 50-hour retainer or a 100-hour retainer. Let's say 50-hour, right? 10% is project management. You end up with 45 hours, which is a little bit over 10 hours a week, right? So we make sure we develop our sprints on a week-to-week basis. We work with you. We try to have flexibility for stuff that comes up last moment. And based on kind of your long-term goal, we try to split it into, again, milestones, split that into sprints, and then just work on this one piece at a time. So this is kind of a TLDR. Essentially, it's, depending on how much you're willing to pay ahead of time, that's how much time we can invest. And, depending on that, we can figure out what sort of resources are suitable for kind of what you need. Again, that's not how we sell it, but this is the simplified explanation of kind of how it works. And then it really depends on kind of what sort of client, what sort of project, and kind of what sort of initiative. For the most part, due to kind of the way we work and we structure our kind of business, most clients coming to us are existing businesses generating like 7, 8, 9 figures. We have Fortune 1000s and kind of larger businesses as well. We work with Meta and so forth. But in most cases, it's like at least 7-figure business with an existing business that's kind of based on digital, right? They're a publisher, a SaaS, B2B lead gen, a website, an e-commerce, anything that's actually making money off of the business is built out with a kind of crappy code base. Let's say I know Divi plus 5 sliders plus something crappy on a $10 per month host or something like that. Just several non-ideal compromises bundled up together, and they understand that they're losing money, right? They have a pain point in place, so they started themselves, or they started a freelancer, then they went to a kind of mid-tier agency that didn't really quite help them, and then they know they have to pay premium and go to really people who profile in that, solving complex problems, willing to just retain them for a bunch of different things. And oftentimes while we're doing kind of the initial reviews, assessments, discovery sessions, whatever it is, we just end up identifying lots of different things that need attention as kind of separate swim lanes, as separate verticals, right? User experience, we see that, like in terms of accessibility, in terms of user experience, in terms of conversion rate optimization, there's a lot of work needed. Performance, for various reasons, again, usability or SEO or anything else, it is a problem. We do profiling, improving core web vitals. We do partner up with vendors like NitroPack, which are kind of turnkey, get your core web vitals fixed. We have the quick solution to stop the bleeding, and we have the permanent solution to fix the underlying cause, right? Then it goes, just functional development. Then we have design. Then we have could be different things. Sometimes again, it's SEO analysis, it's restructuring content, lots of different areas. So we try to analyze these, segment them, figure out what's the pain point that the client's willing to or has prioritized, figure out if there are other vendors in the field like an SEO agency, creative brand agency, anything else. And we try to play in the same kind of playing field in a fair and consistent manner.
Love it. It with all that you do and your technical expertise and your team, it's such a to me, it's a risk and it's a hard thing to hire somebody full time to come in to do any of the things that you mentioned. It's the workforce we're seeing at Postas in particular. We're hearing it's a tight workforce. There's talented people are always in demand. And I think if I'm a business and I don't focus on doing what you do, I'm trying to run my business over here. I want to pull in experts that worry about that, acquiring talent, training talent, getting them in a process and stuff like that. So I love that aspect, and I see it more and more with WordPress or agencies that post status. Well, okay, before we get to the journey to where you are now I got to talk about WordPress retainers. I got to let you go on this because, I mean, from a business model standpoint, so the first part was for prospective clients. If you are looking for a great partner, DevriX is awesome, and you can see how they work. But now I kind of want to talk about for our other fellow agencies out there and freelancers. When you say retainer, I instantly perk up because it's consistent revenue.
Hmm.
It allows you to work with good clients that seem committed, value what you're doing. And I mean, so many times I talk to agencies and it's the feast or famine, it's up and down. And from a pure business standpoint, I go retainers all the way, subscriptions all the way. But tell me about WordPress retainers. I want to let you go on this, just get your thoughts, and I'll chime in and ask questions too.
Oh man, I'm pretty sure I have so much to say about retainers. Again, I'm so passionate about that. Like a lot of people just call me crazy. Like, dude, like that's not the only way, right? People still do one-off projects. People still want a fixed quote. Still look for just $99 maintenance or something like that. Like so many other opportunities. I'm like, nope, everything's a retainer. That's just how my head works, right? I'm so brainwashed at this point. So we can just start a separate post status retainers podcast or whatever, and I have at least 100 episodes pre-recorded for you. But really, I mean, we do as an agency, and like not just my agency, but like other businesses as well. We do have a legal form on retainer, right? Retainers are fairly popular in the law kind of field. Reviewing contracts and kind of sending letter of intent or NDAs or whatever. We do have a legal form on retainer. You can't get access to a lawyer on time unless you have that. We have a CPA or an accounting firm or retainer. And like we work with other business like a PPC firm or retainer or like BizDev, lead gen, demand gen, whatever it is, right? It's really not unpopular, right? What I'm trying to say is we haven't reinvented the wheel. We haven't kind of invented like, I don't know, traveling, flying to Mars and then actually flying back to Earth. We haven't quite done that. So it's popular in different fields is what I'm trying to say. Marketing, right? Copywriting, SEO reviews, like even brand work, it is essentially retainer. So what I'm saying is most other industries have figured it out already. Why haven't we? You mentioned the feast and famine as a very common problem, right? I hate that. I hate the fact that if you don't have business closed by, let's say, December 15th, you have to wait up until, let's say, February 1st to start getting some leads your way. That sucks. Or December is your busiest way of the month of the year, period, simply because everyone wants everything done by the end of the year. That's so common in the industry that's burning people out and making their lives miserable simply because it's based on that seasonality that everyone's looking for, right? So I firmly believe in diversification. I firmly believe in recurring revenue, right? If I had to start all over, the first thing I would do in a business is just chase recurring revenue as the holy grail, period, or otherwise I'm probably not even going to get there. Just recurring revenue. That's it. And diversification, like building a business model that's not as expensive. Like it's not you have an agency of 5 people and then you have to get a project with 3 people full time. And then you can take another project or you can only take one or two. And when this project is done, you have no idea what to do after, right? So retainers solve both the feast and famine thing due to that recurring plan and long-term planning and the diversification thing. And of course, it's recurring revenue that you can plan around figure out if there's kind of a payroll to be tackled. It actually helps you out and kind of define a proper financial modeling of like revenue and profit margins and again, hiring plans. Like, can you afford to go to an event or sponsor something out? Does it make sense to do PR or like lots of opportunities when you know kind of what you're making more or less on a monthly basis. So yeah, again, I'm probably oversimplifying, but like again, in my head, it's just retainers and like everything else is like an afterthought.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, it's just better for business when you have that consistent revenue and you're not trying to continually go out, and allows the business, your business, to hire good people,
Yeah,
retain good people. So like in that scenario, when you're hiring a firm like DevriX, you've done all the recruiting for that technical talent. You've done all that time and expense that it takes to find good people. And so they don't have to do that. They can concentrate on their core expertise. And it's a huge benefit. And I would say this too, like I'm on the bandwagon with you. Um, I, I would say like you should want to support businesses that have retainers, because there's a long, they, it's better for the business growth that you're using with a vital vendor. Um,
yeah.
so, okay, love that. We'll be talking more. We'll come back to WordPress retainers because I agree. I think if more agencies went to that, it could be a net effect to say, like, this is how you get consistent quality work from an agency you can depend on. Just like you hire a full-time person, you pay them salary or whatever it is on a consistent basis. It frees them up to focus on what they do best.
I mean, your life is, as you said, like you're hiring people. You pay them on a like every couple of weeks, every month, or whatever it is. You pay rent, you pay, electricity bill, or like most things that you pay in life are just scheduled, right? Every couple of weeks, every month or so. So that's how life works. So not trying to invest in kind of recurring revenue is just counterintuitive. That said, product businesses, especially SaaS and subscription based, they know that. And that's why they're successful. That's why unicorns are normally SaaS businesses. They're scalable, they have better ROI and so forth. So, like in most cases, when you have a successful product business, you know that like that's the only way forward, right? But I think that kind of the biggest obstacle, or like the biggest reason why people in kind of the WordPress space are not spending time thinking about retainers is due to the fact that service-based businesses are traditionally not structured as retainers, right? You when you call a plumber, it's not a retainer service. When you call a hairdresser, it's not a retainer service unless you turn it unless you turn it into a package, unless you turn it into something else. And I was just looking just a couple of months ago. A couple of months ago, I was speaking with Brian Cassell from Zip Message. He has a great service for async. I'm also an async kind of ambassador. But back like maybe I don't know, 10 years ago or so, he had a website. I think it was Productize and Scale. And he was
Yep,
teaching people. Yeah, well, I mean,
I was a student.
yeah, I mean, you know that. Like he was literally teaching people how to stop chasing every single project and turn whatever service they have into a product, right? Um, Naval, the angel list guru, like ominous investor, like the tweet rock star and so forth. He also has a productized type of service and book as well, just preaching about that, right? So like a lot of smart people, a lot of people smarter than me have figured out that services have to be productized. And again, you have been a student of Brian, you know what he preaches. It's really it's just a mantra. It's just a way of thinking. Like the entire world is living around monthly costs, monthly fees. Your bank takes a monthly whatever or annual credit card fee, taxes, or anything else. Like you file annual taxes as an individual and like everything else, right? Everything is recurring. So adapting and adjusting to that one way or another is going to make your life easier so that you have that spare time actually thinking of strategy and bigger picture things.
Well, in particular in web work, it's someone to rely on, someone to go to and trust and know they're going to be there to help you with your technical needs in particular.
Hmm.
Okay, we could geek out on this for the rest of the time, but I wanted to talk about your journey. So we'll have to follow up, Maria, and talk more about retainers, because I think it's something that we need to talk about in the ecosystem so that there's more sustainable businesses with outcomes, that products that clients can rely on.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm curious. DevriX and all the other things you have going. You have several projects you talked about, like SaaS and different things of your own, in addition to helping your clients with that. Um, 50 people, all this work. That's crazy. Congratulations on your journey to get here.
Oh, thank you.
But how'd you get here? So I know we got back. You got a computer technical background. You found WordPress. What was that first step when you started getting paid to do what you're doing that eventually led to and grew to what you're doing now?
Um, yeah, good question. Again, so considering the fact that my background was in software engineering, I already had idea and exposure to different businesses doing that, right? I worked for two different it's development shops. It's not quite an agency, but it kind of works similarly. But I was still working on proposals. I was still working on kind of functional analysis and lots of different like time and material type of projects going through me for more complex projects, or rather, well, projects that were taking more time due to the tech stack, right? What I'm saying is, and that's kind of also a piece of advice I often kind of recommend to my followers and people just kind of working with me, is if you want to start your kind of own business, just don't start with no experience whatsoever. Spend at least a few years working in a business, kind of similar business, especially a service-based business, which is fairly dynamic, to understand how the bread and butter, how sausage is made, as they say, right? And to actually figure out what the business looks like who's in charge, like who's generating revenue, what's kind of the pipeline like, and just go through that process a few times to figure out how it works. It's a lot easier than yeah. Go
No, I wanted to say yes, 100%, 100,000%. Most entrepreneurs I've known over my career didn't go in high school or school go, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a startup founder. That's a whole startup founder is a whole other thing over here. But most entrepreneurs I talk about, including this one, stumbled into it, fell
Mm.
into it. And what you said there is so relevant. I've got friends that own construction companies, big manufacturing companies. And what you said right there is so vital because we weren't just perhaps born with all of this knowledge
Mm.
about how do I do how do I do a client proposal or anything. I think if there's someone that has that interest in building having their own business, that is critical because you can watch. I look back at my career, Mario, and I'm like, oh, I learned leadership from these people. This one, I learned leadership not to do the opposite, but like that collection of experiences is so vital. So I just wanted to say heck yes, because then you get a feel for like how you want to operate and see as a model for someone else. So that experience, I just want to say heck yeah. Okay,
And
keep going.
and yeah, I love it. And you mentioned leadership and learning leadership from people, how to do or how not to do, and the
Yeah.
ability to actually work in a real business gives you the opportunity to work with bosses or managers or clients and just understand what you like and what you don't like, and actually develop your style before you've had the chance to start and have no idea what you're doing, and like not even get an opportunity to build your own style, right? So that's why I also think it's so damn critical. But kind of back to the original topic of kind of WordPress, like working for a few years, I already knew kind of what the process was like. I was already building proposal. I was already talking to clients, like kind of a business intelligence person or whatever role I had back in the day, and it wasn't really on uncharted territory. However, I also spent probably a year just reading freelance resources, right? There were a bunch of these, like one of them actually got acquired by Envato several years ago, but like several kind of freelance, I just, talking about estimates and kind of how you do pricing and taxes and proposals and contracts and like all of that, just the operational part of the work, right? You can get a brief and develop it one way or another, regardless of whether you're a developer, designer, or something. You can get a functional list of features and build it, right? You can go to even Wix and Weebly and Squarespace and all the others and just draft it out one way or another, right? But there's so much to landing a project and completing a project to that, right? There's first off lead generation and marketing, how you do that, how you position yourself, PR branding. Then you have sales and negotiations. Then you have again pricing and estimates. Then you have budgeting for all the horror stories. Then you have gathering requirements. Then you have time/resource allocation. What do you do with multiple projects at a time? How do you hire? How do you manage projects? How do you report? How do you communicate? And again, taxes and legal, there's so much in running a business. And again, I'm not saying that to discourage people, even though I don't think that everyone has to deal with all that shit. But there's just a lot to that. So again, it's important to be in a business to figure out what the business looks like, and it's also important to read and kind of figure out how it looks. So after spending several years working for people and learning extensively, and also building small freelance projects, I turned into full-time freelancing and almost went bankrupt simply because it was still not enough. It was just still not enough, right? My negotiation skills sucked. I was really bad into that. I was great at allowing scope creep to happen, right? A month-long project easily turned into a 5-month project at the same fee because clients wanted everything and anything in the world, and I was a good guy and letting that. And this was absolutely terrible and a horrible way to just run a business, right? Luckily, I had other ways to make money, which is essentially my technical training and kind of other capabilities, kind of charging high profile consulting rates, working for companies like SAP and VMware and a bunch of other giants, including CERN, the Hadron Collider company, and so forth. Like they were literally paying all my expenses like several months ahead so that I can go to freelancing. And I mean, it was funny. I really wanted to do that. I said, like, I was okay at development, right? And like, I was building my brand and stuff, but negotiations just terrible, just horrible, right? So this was a pretty slippery thing up until we got our first project. Well, it was I and some help, like one person, my kind of co-founder, who's our CTO right now. We were kind of working on one of projects really hard to just compensate financially, but we got the first project paying a monthly retainer, right? And it was absolutely eye-opening, right? So this way we kind of kept working with them, allocating enough time, getting some breathing room, not arguing on scope or like whether you're getting paid or not, getting a solid monthly paycheck, and then allocating resource for the team, growing a small team. It was really great in like, all right, like that's how it's supposed to be done. It's really efficient. We are delivering more. We are not spending time arguing, and so everyone's happy. So like this was the way to get it done. Now this was a horror story in itself, in the sense of one day that client that was literally generating 90% of our revenue, maybe 85%, came to us and said, "Look, guys, this software is so great that it can run on autopilot for a year. We're just going to take the next 4 months off, just like literally doing nothing, and keep it, on autopilot for another 4 or 5 months, and then sell it because, like, we literally, it's absolutely brilliant. Doesn't require maintenance. Thank you so much for helping us out, but we are not going to pay anymore, right?" So we were, as people say, we were victims of our own success. So the reason that failed is the second reason I like retainers, which is diversification, and it's just being smart enough not to work with one big whale and kind of going bankrupt. So, anyways, I had this followed a couple of months when I was working probably 18 hours a day, just calling, waking up in the morning, sales calls with Australia, in the evening sales calls with the States, daytime trying to chase local leads in Europe. So it was a horrible part of my life, but eventually we did close some projects to help us persevere over the next 4 or 5 months. And we tried to turn all of them into retainers, and we converted maybe 2 or 3 of them as retainers. So this got us back into the recurring revenue game and gave us a solid start, and just, allowed us to be grateful and thankful to these clients, and also keep chasing even small projects or other deals or kind of maintenance or steroids or support jobs or whatever it is, and just add to that retainer portfolio. So I'd say this is the kind of the high level of how it worked out, and some of the obvious horror stories of why it was this close to not working out if it wasn't for retainers.
I think that's part of the gig with being an entrepreneur is start going on something, see when something's not working and try to refine the process, looking at
Yeah.
a business as a product itself and going, we're having a bug here. We need to, you know, patch that bug. We want a new feature release, new version release. Okay. And I see that with your story is I resonate too, by the way, with it. I don't like sales. I don't like the back and forth contract stuff. I've done all that, but I don't like it. And then going, it seems like there was this big version release with your journey where you're like, this is not working. We're going to go to this new model and why it helped. Were there other things along the way that were catalysts to where you are today?
Perhaps. I mean, there are a bunch of these, but I'm going to try to synthesize them in a shorter manner. So one of them was just rediscovering WordPress. Um, Again, I had exposure to different systems and different platforms. At some point in time, at the same time, I had a C++ project going on for mining, gold mines and all those cards, pulling mines. It was C++. I was building assembler software for set-top boxes for hotels. I was working on a UNICEF project in Django, which is Python. I had a couple of PHP projects, and I still had like my Java job, like some remaining projects that I was completing, right? So it was, and I was also working on an Android app, by the way, but that's still kind of Java. So very diverse, very inconsistent, unfocused kind of way of doing development, but it was working out, right? The problem is you can't really kind of specialize in one thing or the other. So one of my clients for the Django app, he was starting a theme framework business, right, for kind of one of the big theme marketplaces. So I joined as a CTO, right, just kind of technical reviews and stuff. We had a lead developer. So I spent maybe 3 months working day to day on WordPress, actually trying to extend it towards a powerful theme framework. Now, whether this was a great idea of providing the monstrous premium multi-purpose theme experience, that's a different story, but it really opened my eyes as to how flexible WordPress is besides design, right? Custom post types, custom taxonomies, settings API, options API, transients, lots of different things happening behind the scenes. That was pre-REST API and pre-Gutenberg and stuff, but it really told me, all right, like this is actually extensible, right? You can build an e-commerce from scratch. You can build a marketplace from scratch or whatever. You can build an LMS from scratch. It's not a hacky way. It's not something that you're patching on top of that because, you know, it has to be in WordPress. It's actually thought out, right? You do have APIs and SDKs and stuff to do stuff. And if it doesn't make sense, for example, like WP list table or so for the general UI, it works out right away. You can register a post type in 20 lines of code. Great. If it works out, great. If not, just register a custom table and then wrap it up with DAO-PDB or so, and then it still works out, right? So this was kind of my, revelation of, all right, you can start real quick. If you know what you're doing, you can scale indefinitely and just grow it to infinity. Because you say, all right, 95% of the project is still working. This one is kind of not working out. Let's say notifications are in, I know, post meta. Stupid idea, right? Just delete them, move them to a custom table or whatever. Or like delete them, move them to RabbitMQ. Delete them, move them to a NoSQL table, whatever, regardless. Build a micro SaaS or whatever, microservices. Go to Amazon Lambda, right? Just extract that thing, call an Ajax there or REST API, you're done, right? You can decompartmentalize or so the project in a way that you actually allows you to tap into different pieces and only extract the piece that is outgrown the platform. Everything else remains and stays the same. I think this was one of the key moments that really made a difference because just picking WordPress as, all right, this is worth investing in for the next 20 years in itself is kind of a tough choice.
Okay, you perfectly segued into my next question. So thank you for sharing your story, some of your experiences that so many people can learn from, and then what you all do in WordPress. Now I want to switch gears the last couple of minutes we have left, Mario, and you've been through a long journey with WordPress, and you just said it. You're like, where I want to work with the tool for the next 20 years. I'm curious your perspectives on WordPress in the future. What what do you see the good, bad and ugly in the future for WordPress? We love this open source software that's enabled so many of us to live our dreams in business. Click publish, like that's how my journey started with WordPress. And so I'm just curious, and I keep asking this question of our members because I think it's something we need to keep an eye on, and I want to hear from talented people that know what they're talking about. So what are your thoughts on the future of WordPress?
Uh, yeah, great question. Definitely a thoughtful question that's hard to kind of sum up in a couple of minutes. I still believe in the future of WordPress. I believe that powering 44% of the web or so is really hard to beat and really hard to compete with, right? What I think is there are several segments that are eating up WordPress's market share right now. For instance, e-commerce, Shopify, uh, basic site builders, Wix, Weebly, Webflow, and that kind of stuff, or Squarespace or whatever, right? There are several aspects that are kind of trying to eat that up. And I think that WordPress has as a community, as an ecosystem, as just a future feature, just trying to work on more powerful, more resilient way to make it happen, right? Again, historically, WordPress got famous with the famous 5-minute install and the ability to turn any design into a theme. I think that we've kind of moved away from that. Right now, it's easier to start a site in one of the site builders, and it's easier to turn a Figma into a design outside WordPress, right? So I think we need to strengthen down and get back to the basics and make that possible, and either turn Gutenberg into something that makes it possible, or like I don't know, acquire Elementor or something like that, or Beaver Builder or whatever, and just actually make it possible in house. So I think this is kind of one area that just WordPress needs to double down. The second thing is WordPress became popular because businesses are like successful businesses are using WordPress, and they're using WordPress primarily because they used to be bloggers and writers and journalists using WordPress. So they, turn into marketing managers, marketing directors, VPs of marketing, CMOs, and they say, nope, we're using WordPress. Like everyone's going to use WordPress. We know how to, like, this is the de facto platform. And right now that disconnect that, the latest generation is not as much of an adept of WordPress is also slightly concerning. And I think that we just need to pay attention to that. And then just thinking of the next generations, Gen Zs and Gen Alpha. What Matt said at State of the World, right, was, hey, that's why we're building Tumblr to WordPress so that this is a social media / social networking experience that kids use, and then they move to WordPress. So I'm not sure how exactly it's going to plan out, but I think that the moment we finalize and just improve the editing experience of Gutenberg and WordPress, the moment we turn Tumblr into WordPress and just, I don't know, get more adoption, get more kids back into the WordPress field, we are pretty much good to go for the next 10 years. We just need to not forget about our competitors and make sure uh, we really stand our way.
I totally agree. You nailed it. Squarespace, Wix, and Weebly have eaten the bottom of the market. I knew this from my themes with themes. I mean, quickly they got on the scene. And I think about my kids in the future is like there's WordPress needs to exist, open source needs to exist, web publishing in this manner needs to exist for the future because there's this tendency. We just had a billionaire buy Twitter, rock the boat, right? Or there's another change at Facebook or Instagram that affects a lot of businesses. And the flag we've always flown at WordPress is freedom, the ability to
Yeah.
do whatever you want with it, including fork it. Ghost is getting in the news again today, and was a for WordPress. So I love that. I think your vision about the Gutenberg and the publishing experience is so critical. I just talked to someone a couple weeks ago about uh, the Fediverse and understanding that little and thinking there's an opportunity there for WordPress to lead the Fediverse. Whatever that is,
Yeah.
WordPress needs to make these changes, these little direction things to come back and go. It is and has been a powerhouse for
Mm.
democratizing publishing as we know it. But like you pointed out, all these things, technology continues to accelerate, and we got to keep pace. We got to keep ahead to keep that core
Hmm.
mission alive in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Mario, thank you so much for being on Post Status Draft. Thanks for being a member of Post Status. You've been with us for a long time, and thanks for sharing your experiences and your journey with others. I appreciate you so much. Where can people learn more about you?
Well, thanks once again for having me. It's definitely a great crew, and kudos to Brown for also starting all that again 8 years ago or so. And I've been a member for like I don't know back then, maybe 7, 8 years or so. People can look me up. mariopeshev.com is my website when I'm building kind of a portfolio, like my online MBA book of sorts. Also, I'm on Twitter, no fear Inc. with underscores, or LinkedIn, Mario Peshev. These are kind of the main networks. Most on the other socials, but definitely make sure you touch base. And of course, on Post Out Slack, which is kind of the cool kids place for WordPress tips.
Absolutely. I love it. Thanks, Mario. You have a great day, and I hope to see you soon, my friend.
Likewise, have a good one and chat soon. Bye bye.